humanity, we have all come very far and traveled a long distance in several kinds of advancement. Humanity has constructed vehicles that have gone to outer space, all kinds of advancement in agriculture, modern science. And yet, somewhere something is missing. Despite all the advancements, we are finding that we are not able to put a stop to the natural calamities, floods, diseases, epidemics, war. We are not able to stop. And more than ever, innocent civilians, animals, living beings are being killed or suffering as part of this advancement. So there is somewhere we have paid a price for what we are doing. Today's verse in Bhagavad Gita gives a clue as to what is happening. Behind the scenes, what is the root cause of all this? And how do we reverse the course? And how do we prevent these things or reduce the incidence of these things, reduce the humanity's suffering? So let us hear about that from the pages of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. But as always, we start first with prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayam Udirayet.
Tato Jayam Udirayet.
Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu.
Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki.
Reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 8. Prakritim
Prakritim
Swam
Swam
Avashtabhya.
Avashtabhya.
Prakritim Swam Avashtabhya.
Prakritim Swam Avashtabhya.
Visrajami
Vishrajami.
Punah Punah.
Punah Punah.
Visrajami Punah Punah.
Vishrajami Punah Punah.
Bhutagramam
Bhutagramam
Imam
Yam
Kritsnam.
Kritsnam.
Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam.
Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam.
Avasam
Avasam
Prakrutehe
Prakritehe
Vasat.
Vasat.
Avasam Prakriter Vasat.
Avasam Prakriter Vasat.
Prakritim Swam Avashtabhya.
Prakritim Swam Avashtabhya.
Visrajami Punah Punah.
Vishrajami Punah Punah.
Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam.
Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam.
Avasam Prakriter Vasat.
Avasam Prakriter Vasat.
Prakritim Swam Avashtabhya.
Prakritim Swam Avashtabhya.
Visrajami Punah Punah.
Vishrajami Punah Punah.
Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam.
Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam.
Avasam Prakriter Vasat.
Avasam Prakriter Vasat.
Prakritim Swam Avashtabhya.
Prakritim Swam Avashtabhya.
Visrajami Punah Punah.
Vishrajami Punah Punah.
Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam.
Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam.
Avasam Prakriter Vasat.
Avasam Prakriter Vasat. Prakritim Swam Avashtabhya.
Prakritim Swam Avashtabhya.
Vishrajami Punah Punah.
Visrajami Punah Punah.
Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam.
Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam.
Avasam Prakriter Vasat.
Avasam Prakriter Vasat.
प्रकृतिं स्वामवष्टभ्य
Prakritim Swam Avashtabhya.
विसृजामि पुनः पुनः
Visrajami Punah Punah.
भूतग्राममिमं कृत्स्नम्
Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam.
अवसं प्रकृतेवसात्
Avasam Prakriter Vasat.
प्रकृतिं स्वाम अवष्टभ्य
Prakritim Swam Avashtabhya.
विसृजामि पुनः पुनः
Visrajami Punah Punah.
भूतग्रामम् इमं कृत्स्नम्
Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam.
अवशं प्रकृतेर्वशात्
Avasam Prakriter Vasat.
Prakritim swam avashtabhya
Prakritim swam avashtabhya
visujami punah punaha
Visrajami punah punah
bhutagramam imam kritsnam
Bhutagramam imam kritsnam
avasham prakriter vashat.
Avasham prakriter vashat.
Prakritim swam avastabhya
Prakritim swam avashtabhya
vrishajami puna puna
Visrajami punah punah
budagramam imam vishram
Bhutagramam imam kritsnam
avasham prakriti vasa.
Avasham prakriter vashat. Online. Anybody online? Prakritim swam avashtabhya Visrajami punah punah Bhutagramam imam kritsnam Avasham prakriter vashat. Synonyms? Yes, please go ahead. Online. VSR.
Prakritim swam avastabhya
Prakritim swam avashtabhya
visarjam punah punaha
Visrajami punah punah
bhutagramam imam kristam
Bhutagramam imam kritsnam
avasam prakriter vasa.
Avasham prakriter vasat. Anybody else online? Synonyms? Prakritim,
Prakritim,
material nature.
material nature.
Swam,
Swam,
of my personal self.
of my personal self.
Avashtabhya,
Avashtabhya,
enter in.
enter in.
Visrajami,
Vishrajami,
create.
create.
Punaha punaha,
Punaha punaha,
again again.
again.
Bhutagramam,
Bhutagramam,
all these cosmic manifestations.
all these cosmic manifestations.
Imam,
Imam,
this.
this.
Kritsnam,
Kritsnam,
total.
total.
Avasham,
Avasham,
automatically.
automatically.
Prakritehe,
Prakritehe,
by the force of nature.
by the force of nature.
Vashat,
Vashat,
under obligation.
under obligation.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Translation: the whole cosmic order is under me. By my will, it is manifested again and again, and by my will, it is annihilated at the end. Translation with repetition: the whole cosmic order
The whole cosmic order
is under me.
is under me.
By my will,
By my will,
it is manifested again and again,
it is manifested again and again.
and by my will,
And by my will,
it is annihilated at the end.
it is annihilated at the end.
Purport. This matter is the manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This has already been explained several times. At the creation, the material energy is let loose as Mahat Tattva, into which the Lord, as his first Purusha incarnation, Mahavishnu, enters. He lies within the causal ocean and breathes out innumerable universes. And into each universe, the Lord again enters as Garbhodhakashai Vishnu. Each Vishnu is in that way created. He still further manifests himself as Kshirodakashai Vishnu, and that Vishnu enters into everything, even into the minute atom. This fact is explained here. He enters into everything. Now, as far as the living entities are concerned, they are impregnated into this material nature, and as a result of their past misdeeds, they take different positions. Thus, the activities of this material world begin. The activities of the different species of living beings are begun from the very moment of creation. It is not that all is evolved. The different species of life are created immediately along with the universe. Men, animal, beasts, birds, everything is simultaneously created, because whatever desires the living entities had at the last annihilation are again manifested. It is clearly stated here that the living entities have nothing to do with this process. The state of being in their past life, in the past creation, is simply manifested again, and all this is done simply by His will. This is the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And after creating different species of life, He has no connection with them. The creation takes place to accommodate the inclinations of the various living entities, and so the Lord does not become involved with it. Thus ends a wonderful transcendental Bhakti Vedanta purport. Om Jnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namavom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So this is a continuation from the previous two verses that are describing the wonderful inconceivable potency, the wonderful supreme will of the Lord. So let us see what is there in today's verse. Prakritim swam avashtabhya vishrajami punaha punaha bhutagramam imam kritsnam avasham prakrite vashat. So there are many words here that have occurred many other times in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Of course, Prakriti, this occurs many times. Avashtabhya, this comes later in Bhagavad Gita, in one place. Avashtabhya is saying here, is translated as enter in. And then Vishrajami is creation. Punaha Punaha is again and again. Bhutagramam. Bhutagramam is translated as all these cosmic manifestations. And there is also one place in Bhagavad Gita where it is said Indriya Gramam. So this word Gramam is appearing here also. All these cosmic manifestation, there it is translated slightly differently. Imam Kritsnam, this word Kritsnam occurs multiple times in Bhagavad Gita. This is translated as total. Avasham, these three are very important words here. Avasham Prakrite Vashat. Avasham here is translated as automatically, and Prakritehe by the force of nature, and Vashat is under obligation. So under my control, all of this is happening. Krishna is saying, what is happening? First thing is that he enters into the material nature, and then under his supervision something happens. What happens? Visrijami punaha punaha. This entire cosmic manifestation is created, and it is not just created once, but it is created again and again. Why this concept of again and again? Because in the previous verses we have seen that there is a destruction also that is happening, dissolution of the creation that happens, Kalpakshaya and Kalpado. We have seen that, how the dissolution happens at the end of every Kalpa, or the day of Brahma. When the nightfall comes, everything is dissolved. And then in the beginning of the Kalpa, again the creation takes place. So this creation is happening again and again. And how does this happen again and again? This is very important word is given here. Automatically, by the force of nature, it happens as it is obligated to happen. There is no, it is not that nature has its own free will, that it says, okay, today I think I would like to take a day off. It is Sunday. Sunday, I want to take off. It's not like that. Nor is there anything, this is a long weekend going on right now, right? There is some, I think this is Easter, not long weekend. Next weekend is long weekend, President's Day. Some schools are closed. A lot of other things are closed here. But when it comes to the material nature, it does not take a kalpa off. So today let Lord Brahma sleep, let us not disturb him. Not like that. It is under obligation, force of nature, it just happens. But it is happening by the will of the Lord. That it is not as if it is happening on its own, as if it's a machine that nobody has turned on. It is a machine, all right, but the machine is being operated by the will of the Supreme Lord. But how it is happening by the will of the Lord, that is very difficult for us to understand. How is it simply by willing something is happening? I mean, it is as if there is a garland to be made for Nitai Gauranga deities, and the flowers are automatically coming from the trees, they're entering our house, and automatically every day garland is being made, and automatically it is going to Nitai. That is magical, right? It is not doesn't happen like that for us. We have to take effort. We have to go to the tree, we have to pluck the flowers, or we have to go to a store and we have to buy the flowers, we have to bring them home and take a thread and a needle and stitch it. So much of work is involved, right? You don't say, let there be a garland, and garland manifests. It doesn't happen like that. But it is not, according to this, it's not even simply saying like that, but simply willing. And by willing, it is happening automatically, kalpa after kalpa after kalpa. It is happening again and again. And the important thing here is for us to understand that it is happening again and again, but under the will. So this is a part that is very easy to forget, because when something happens repeatedly, we think that it is impersonal. That's just how nature is. Sun rises every day. Sun sets every day. Oh, some laws of physics are going on. There is a law of gravity, and that's all it is. It is not anything great. What is great in that? But actually the greatness here is that automatic mechanism that is happening by the design of a supreme intelligence. The design of the supreme will, by the will of the Lord and by supreme intelligence, this is happening. So that is the purport of these verses that we have been discussing for the last 3 weeks, including today. Now this purport that is there, today's purport has many wonderful points from which there are very tangible, actionable things that we can learn. There are very, very crystal clear things that are being talked about. So let us see what is there in today's purport. But before I go to today's purport, I would like to reference a book which has been written several, perhaps maybe 150 years back, or so, maybe approximately 150 years back. I don't know the exact date. It is written by a person who was a renowned scientist at the time. And perhaps you may recognize this book if I showed you what that book was. Does anybody recognize this book? Yes, everybody recognizes this book. The Origin of Species. This book was authored by a gentleman by the name Charles Darwin. And initially there was a lot of controversy around the contents of this book. But gradually over time, this book gained a lot of acceptance till about early 20th century, when a lot of the contents of this book were disputed. And yet, even till today, the elements of this book remain. Yes, Prabhu, you had something? No. They remain the fundamental basis of the modern scientific understanding of how life on Earth began, how different varieties of species came to be, and what is the past, present, and the future direction of these species based upon the theory that there is a general scientific understanding and acceptance of how we all came to be. How did the horse came to be a horse? How did the giraffe came to be a giraffe? Etc. There are many other such examples. And this is summarized by the term, the theory of natural selection. You all be familiar, we have all studied in school, theory of natural selection. It says that there are several environmental factors that are at play at any given time. And based on that environmental factors, there is a population within a species. If that species did not have any natural predators, the species will continue to grow. But there are constraints imposed by the environment. The constraints in the form of predators, the constraints in the form of natural scarcity of resources. And under these constraints, there are some individuals within the species that adapt better than the other individuals. And by that process of better adaptation, they survive longer, they are stronger, and they come out the winner in the environment. And they pass on these preferable, stronger traits to the next generation of the species. And thereby, every subsequent generation of the species becomes better and better adapted to the environment. And thus, in a way, nature is selecting the best of the species to survive and propagate further. This is the theory. And from time to time, there are also something called genetic mutation that happens that causes a step change in how the characteristics of the species evolves. And again, those mutations, which are, if they are successful, if they are favorable for the environment, they are passed on to the next generation. If they're unfavorable, that particular mutation dies out. And in this way, through the process of natural selection and the process of mutation, and then subsequently there are other scientists, there is one particular one called Jean Lamarck. I don't know if you all remember this from school. Jean Lamarck, there was a theory of use and disuse. That if there is some individual in a species that wants to specifically use a specific faculty given to it in a bigger way, better way, then that faculty, that specific faculty becomes stronger. And the faculties that are not used, they become weaker and weaker. So this was the explanation given for why the giraffe has got such a long neck. Because the giraffe earlier had a shorter neck, according to the theory. And then there were some leaves which are at a slightly higher height. And it will keep climbing higher and higher. It has to reach that leaves. And every subsequent generation, slightly the neck became longer. And then over time, the giraffe developed a very long neck. So this is called the theory of use. And similarly, there is a theory of disuse, of how certain birds, there was no need for them to fly because there were no predators. And gradually their wings reduced, and over time their wings went away. So there were several birds like kiwi or other such birds, penguin for example, they completely lost their wings. So these are all various theories that are there that explain the origin of species. Modern scientific community accepts them as that is how it is evolved, and generally not just scientific community, but it has become so popular that all of us have grown up by learning about this, and anything else appears to be superstition, to the degree that if you present actual information from our Vedic literature, it appears like it is a superstition. But despite our deep conditioning in these theories, Prabhupada reminds us in several lectures, in practical demonstration of theological and philosophical debates with his disciples. He has shown the fallacies in these theories, and he has put forward, he has shown the light on scientific knowledge that is actually presented in our Vedic literature. And some of that is explained in today's purport, but there are also other works in which they are further explained. So let us see in today's purport what is there with regards to how these species came about, what is the origin of species, what explains the diversity of species that we see around us. So first point is the origin. And the second point that I'll talk about a little later is why did the origin happen the way it happened. And then the third point I'll talk about is what are the laws of nature that are at play, and how do they impact us, and how do we overcome the constraints imposed upon those laws of nature upon us. So these are the three things I would like to talk about in the next half an hour or so. If you have any question, please feel free to raise your hand or ask me at any point. So the first part is just a description of the Vedic view of how the origin of species came about. So Prabhupada is saying, the purport, first of all, let us understand that this matter that we see around us is a manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this has been described before in the 7th chapter as apara prakriti. So there is a para prakriti and there is apara prakriti. Apara prakriti means inferior. Para prakriti is superior. So the inferior prakriti is the manifestation of the matter, or the manifestation of the inferior energy, that is matter. That is the apara prakriti. And superior prakriti is para prakriti, that is the living entities. The living entities are considered as the superior prakriti. So the second point that is there in the purport is, at the creation, material energy is let loose as Mahat Tattva. So this entire sum total of the material energy is called Mahat Tattva. And inside this Mahat Tattva, the Supreme Lord takes his incarnation as a first Purusha or Mahavishnu. And within this causal ocean or Karana ocean, he is lying down there, and from his pores, from his breathing, there are innumerable universes that come about. Now, these universes that are all coming out in this Karana ocean, they are all rising up, or rising in the form of bubbles, and they are all dark inside. Inside each universe, there is nothing. So the Supreme Lord, that is Mahavishnu, he enters into, or he expands himself into each of these universes. And that form of the Lord is called Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And then further from this Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, who is lying down in water within the lower portion of the universe, from his navel there is a lotus that grows, lotus stem, and within the stem of that lotus there are all the planetary systems. And on the topmost part of that lotus is the Satyaloka, Brahmaloka, that is where Brahma manifests. So we have studied this. And then further it is said here that in each universe in this way created. And further within the universe there is another planet called Shvetadvipa. And in that Shvetadvipa he further manifests himself as Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, and that Vishnu then enters into everything, even the minute atom. And Prabhupada stresses that here in the purport. These are only some of the points from the purport. But in the actual purport, you might remember that Prabhupada specifically says that this has been stressed here, avashtabhya, that is there in the verse today, that in this Vishnu form, the Supreme Lord is entering into every single thing, into every single atom, everywhere he is present. So Supreme Lord Mahavishnu is present in this table, is present in this laptop, is present in this water, everywhere he is present. And just see our misfortune that we are unable to see the Supreme Lord who is present in every atom, we are unable to perceive him, but he is present everywhere all around us. And so the next point that is being mentioned is, as far as the living entities are concerned, which is now coming to the main thrust of today's discussion, as far as the living entities are concerned, they are impregnated into this material nature, and as a result of their past deeds, they take different positions. So there are different, first of all the living entities are impregnated into the material nature, and there is a brief mention of how they take different positions. So different position means it is not that like a police force that is entering into a criminal hideout where everybody takes a position and is aiming gun. This is not that kind of a position here. Different position here means that all the living entities, whether they be of one species or different species, they are all put into certain position in this material world. Position means, for example, certain living entities are able to fly. So they have got a position of a living organism that can fly, and therefore it has ability to look at the prey from a distance and then swoop down and take the prey. That is the position of that living entity which is able to fly. Other living entities are able to move around on this planet, and they have to fetch means of sustenance by moving around and using their hands and legs. There are other living entities that cannot do that. They simply stay stationary, and they have to tolerate lots of different varieties of environmental conditions. They cannot go inside a house and take shelter when it is raining, when it is sunshine. They have to just stay there. That is their position. Some other living entities are put into the marine life. They are either in the ocean or in the river or in ponds, and they never come outside. They don't. Rarely they even go above the surface. They are all situated inside the water, and they are put in the position of living within the water. So all these different positions are in a way you can say they are like high level constraints that they are placed under. But even if you go a little zoom in, imagine that you have a what is that thing that takes photos from the top? Drones. Sorry. So drones. So there is a drone. A drone is coming from the top where we saw all these different high level classifications of species. Now you're zooming into one specific fish. One specific fish. Like that Nemo in that movie. One specific fish. That one specific fish is facing one set of circumstances. It has got one specific predator coming from here. It has got one source of food here. So that is also a part of this position. So what circumstances are faced by one specific individual fish among millions of fish that are in the ocean? Or it may be one bird among millions of birds that are flying in the sky. One child in billions of humans that are there. That position, that specific position is carefully designed based on the results of the past deeds, according to this line. Thus the activities of the material world begin. The activities of the different species of living beings are begun from the very moment of creation. It is not that it is all evolved. The different species of life are created immediately along with the universe. So here is a Vedic perspective of what is actually the origin of species. The species evolved all at the same time. Prabhupada says this many, many times all over again, several times over and over again. There are 8.4 million species as per our Vedic literature. These 8.4 million species have always existed. It is not that initially there was one single species and then it evolved into 2 species and then it evolved into 4 species and then 16 species, then 64 species, like that. No, it is, or 256, whatever be that, 2 to the power. So it didn't evolve like that. All the species exist at the same time. But then somebody may ask, but what about that species? I don't see it. It seems to have gone extinct. There are so many species that are no longer seen now. There is one disciple who was asking, because Prabhupada liked this kind of conversations. Often Prabhupada will take one role as a authority on the Vedic literature. And then he'll ask his disciples to take on the roles of other scientists, philosophers, etc., or different proponents of different philosophies or isms. And he would like to have an argument with them. And so one of his disciples who was playing the role of a person who was accepting Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, he would say, but Prabhupada, what about this bird dodo? Dodo has gone extinct. We don't see any dodo anymore. What about dinosaur? We saw the bones of dinosaur. We dig the earth, we see dinosaur. We don't see dinosaur anymore. How can you say that 8.4 million species are always there, now also they're there? How do you say this? What about human beings? 10 million years back, we don't see any evidence of human beings. No bones of human beings are found. Dinosaur bones I'm finding, but human bones I'm not finding 10, 15 million years back. Like this, several arguments are presented. And Prabhupada systematically demolished all the arguments. So the first argument, you would say that you want human bones 10 million years back. You see, animals, nobody cremates animals, correct? When animal die, what happens? They are just there. Some other animals will come and eat the flesh. Over time, some remaining flesh will decompose. But by chance, if there is ice or something, that the bones will get preserved and they may remain. But what happens when human beings die? They are burnt. The dead body is burnt. Where is the question of bone remaining? Bone cannot remain. So when the body is burnt, the bone also becomes very, very brittle and it's gone. It doesn't burn completely, but it completely loses, completely breaks down, and it just is ready to dissolve. You just put a little bit of water, it will dissolve and go away. So the bones cannot survive. Now, about the elimination, about the extinction of species, he would say, have you been to every corner of the earth? The earth's circumference is 25,000 kilometers, 2 pi r, up to 6,400 times 2 and pi. That is how much? 13,000 times pi, some 36,000 kilometers. Have you been to every square inch of this surface of the earth to have seen every single species? Do you know that this species has really gone extinct? Have you been to all other planets in the universe? Because 8.4 million species of life are existing all over the universe. It is not that they are only existing on planet Earth. They exist everywhere. So have you been to every single square inch of every single planet in this entire universe? Have you been to other universes? There are many other universes. 8.4 million species does not apply only to this universe. It applies to all other universes. Therefore, you have actually no basis to say that species have gone extinct. You have no basis to say that a certain species evolved only at certain time. All you can say is that you have observed certain species at certain periods of time. It has nothing to do with actually whether species existed or did not exist. Therefore, you have no scientific basis to actually make this comment that certain species have become extinct or certain species came into existence only at a certain time. So this is, in this way, he would demolish these arguments. So now that we understand, or we are prepared to accept, I know that it takes a little bit of time to get this acceptance because we have studied this for a very long time, that all the species came through evolution. Let us say for a minute that you accept that all the species came at once and they've all been existing. Then the question becomes, why did this happen? So for this, there is some further description. The first thing that, if you see here, what is given here is that the result of their past deeds, they take different positions. Result of their past deed, they take different positions. So one thing is a deed, and the other is that when you do the deed, it results in a certain state of mind or a certain state of consciousness. And the deeds are driven by desires. So first you have a desire, the desire translates into contemplation, the contemplation translates into determination to act, the determination to act translates into action, and the action further results in a result, and that result goes to reinforce your desire. So this loop of desire reinforcement results in a state of mind, a state of consciousness, and that consciousness is what determines what position that living entity takes when it leaves the body and takes the next body. This leaving of body and taking the next body can happen within a day of Brahma, or it can happen across the day of Brahma. For example, there is a living entity that is having a certain state of mind, a state of consciousness, and then that living entity leaves the body. Then immediately it's awarded another body according to that state of consciousness. And this goes on, and suddenly the day of Brahma is over. Now the entire creation is wound up. But the desire or the state of mind has not gone away. It is wound up, but it is wound up within the body of Mahavishnu, but that is not gone away. Now next day when the creation again starts, Kalpadav, what happens? All the living entities are again set forth. They are impregnated into the matter, and again they come into existence. Now, whatever state of mind they had in the previous day of Brahma, previous night when the Kalpakshaya happened, the same state of mind is there when Kalpadav happens, and that is how the species are created. So this is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita also. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajantyante kalevaram tam tam eva iti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. And there is one more verse in Bhagavad Gita that further describes that yes, whatever state of being you have at the time of death, certainly you will get another body. But what is the root cause behind that state of being? What is that smaran bhavam? Where is it coming from? That smaran bhavam is coming from ichcha and dvesha. Ichcha dvesha samutvena dvandva mohena bharata sarva bhutani sammoham sarge yanti parantapa. So this origin of species is actually coming from ichcha and dvesha. Because the living entities has developed a certain desire to become Krishna and has developed an envy towards Krishna. Therefore, the ichcha and dvesha, that is a desire to become God, or desire to become one with God, or desire to become God, combined with an envy for the position of God, that results, the combination of this ichcha and dvesha, it results in a person coming under the illusion, and that is the reason for the varieties of species that we see in the world around us. So this has already been described in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. O scion of Bharata, Krishna is saying, O conqueror of foe, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by the dualities arisen from desire and hate. So this desire is a very, very crucial part, and we should contemplate a little bit more in the next 15 minutes or so. Let us look a little bit more about the situation that comes because of desire. What kind of desire results in what kind of a result, and is there a way for us to redirect this desire? Let us take a look at this. So there is another contrasting situation that has been described. Sorry, there is a wrong verse. This is actually from, this is a different verse. I think it is from Bhagavatam. I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly which verse it is. Bhagavatam. I think it is 3rd canto. I'm sorry, I don't remember this, but that is not Bhagavad Gita 7:27, sorry. But this verse is the exact opposite. So what happens if ichcha and dvesha are absent? If this desire to become Krishna or the desire to envy Krishna, if these two are absent, what happens? So we saw what happens when there is a desire to become Krishna or an envy towards Krishna. What happens? Sarge yanti parantapa. We are cast into this material species and acquire different kinds of bodies. But if this ichcha and dvesha are absent, then what happens? Sarvatra samachetasa. If the person becomes, this is Kardama Muni. This is from the life of Kardama Muni. That how Kardama Muni achieved this state were completely bereft of any kind of desire to lord over the material circumstances around us, and completely absent from any envy. And a sama chetasa means sarvatra sama chetasa is to view everybody, all circumstances as equal, because Kardama Muni was able to see the presence of Krishna, presence of Vishnu in every atom, in every living entity he could see as Paramatma, and therefore he would see everything with equal vision. So this vision was attained, and then with this progression of this kind of advancement, what happened? Bhagavad Bhakti Yuktena Prapta Bhagavati Gati. So you attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavata Bhakti Yuktena, with complete immersion, or fully immersed in Krishna consciousness, he attained to the highest perfection. Freed from all hatred and desire, Kardama Muni, being equal to everyone because of discharging uncontaminated devotional service, ultimately attained the path back to Godhead. So you see the power of Ichcha and Dvesha. That on one hand, the presence of Ichcha and Dvesha leads to Sarge Yanti Parantapa, and absence of, if somebody is able to eliminate completely Ichcha and Dvesha, then you can attain completely, become uncontaminated because of discharging uncontaminated devotional service, which is of course by the means by which you can overcome hatred and desire, otherwise it is not possible. So it is not even necessary to say that in addition he did that, but in fact it is because of discharging devotional service that he became freed from hatred and desire, and he ultimately attained to the path back to Godhead. So let us look at further into the purport on some of the other points that we just discussed, and summarize it, and then we'll go forward. Men, animal, beasts, birds, everything is simultaneously created because whatever desires the living entities had at the last annihilation are again manifested. The creation takes place to accommodate the inclination of the various living entities, and so the Lord does not become involved with it. The state of being in their past life, in the past creation, is simply manifested again, and all this is done simply by his will. This is the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is clearly stated here that the living entities have nothing to do with this process, and after creating different species of life, he has no connection with them. So we are seeing what we just discussed, that in the last creation, whatever state of mind he had, whatever desires they had, the same desire is getting manifested again in the next creation. That is how you see variety of species. If somebody wants to eat raw flesh, in the previous kalpa, kalpakshaya, maybe there was no facility available at the time, all the meat had gone away, so he had to maybe eat other human flesh, or whatever situation it might have been. But he had a desire to eat some other flesh. So when the species are created, again as favorable circumstances given for him to execute his desire, and nice ability put in the in a lion form or a tiger form or a bear form, so he can nicely eat raw flesh. Or if somebody had no desire to wear any kind of clothes, even though being born in a human body, somebody is like wants to go naked everywhere, then that desire is noted by Krishna, and in the next kalpa starts, this is again at the end of kalpa, otherwise you don't have to wait for end of kalpa. In the very next life you'll get all these desires fulfilled. But those who are unable to fulfill the end of kalpa, for them this is the beginning that is happening. They are given a tree body, right? Nobody has to wear a tree. A tree does not have to wear any kind of clothes. So there is no shame in being nude when you are a tree. So therefore, like this, there are different kinds of desires that are being fulfilled by various species of life. Now, there is a verse in Ishopanishad. So before I go to this, I want to just talk about what is the lesson that we draw from this, or what is the reason that we have seen that why is it that somebody who has been given nice facilities for perhaps having saner desires ends up having a desire which takes him into a degraded form of existence. So let us say I have been given some circumstances around me, some kind of a position, let us say a human being, right? Because animals, they really cannot utilize their position in any way other than what has been forced upon them. Animal is not able to use a higher intelligence to decide exactly how to use its position favorably. But a human being can. But despite of being given this human body, what is it that prevents us from utilizing our desires in a way that gives us into a state, that takes us to a state which is like Kardama Muni, which is Ichcha Dvesha Vihitena, Vihinena. Ichha desha dvesha vihinena. Why is it that we are unable to get to that state? So the reason for this is given in Ishopanishad, that we are not seeing what is our true position in the cosmic scheme of things. We are unable to see the presence of the Lord in every atom. We are unable to see our spiritual nature, which is a higher para prakriti. And because we are unable to see that, we are unable to see what is our true position, constitutional position in this universe. And unable to see the true constitutional position, we take up a false position or identification with the body around us, and we lead a life of trying to gratify our senses, which leads us into a continuous slope of degradation. Now, what is the antidote to this? The antidote to this is given in Ishopanishad, where it educates us about our true position, the true ownership of the objects that we see around us. In this environment, whatever we see it as an object that can satisfy our desire. We see them as objects that we can possess. We see it as an object that should be in our dominion, that this should be under my control, but it is not. Let me strive for getting it under my control. Oh, I do not have this latest Tesla car. Let me go buy the Tesla car. It should be mine. This Tesla car should belong to me. It should not be on the road belonging to somebody else. It should belong to me. Similarly, this beautiful house in this wonderful neighborhood, nice neighborhood, this house should belong to me. And all these latest iPhone should belong to me. So these things that we see around us, we see them as objects that should belong to us. But in reality, these are objects that are already owned by somebody else. These are objects that are already owned by somebody else, and we are trying to covet something that we have no right to covet. And this is explained in the first text of Ishopanishad. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita magrida kasya svidhanam. So this verse is saying, Ishavasyam idam sarvam means everything is already belonging to Isha or Krishna. It's already belonging to him. The things that you're saying that should belong to me, the ichha of possession and the dvesha towards another living entity who might be possessing, actually all these things are already possessed by the Supreme Lord. Ishavasyam jagat sarvam. He's already the controller. Prabhupada says in a lecture, it is seen that ordinarily when somebody is running a business, if he is a controller of that business, that means he's the owner of that business also. So Isha means controller. So the Supreme Lord is already the controller of this entire universe, which means he's also the proprietor of this universe. So everything belongs to him, but we are claiming that it should belong to me. This is the problem. So instead, what should we do? Tena tyaktena bhunjita. Tena means he, his. Whatever portion he is giving for you, that portion we should take. The quota of ownership, temporary ownership in this current role that we are having, in this current body, as a son, as an Indian, or as a American, or whatever it may be, I am being given a certain quota, maybe a certain amount of rice that is coming under my quota that I am able to eat every day, a certain amount of vegetables that I am able to eat, some amount of fruits that are sufficient for me, certain amount of square footage of real estate that I am able to occupy, this space that I am able to occupy. So there is a certain quota that is given. This quota that has been given for us, one must be satisfied with that and not covet for that which is not under our quota. Tena tyaktena bhunjita. Bhunjita means to accept. Ma gridha kasya vidhanam. Do not aspire for anything more. Everything animate or inanimate that is within this universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things knowing well to whom they belong. This principle is extremely relevant to us in devotee life also, because even as a devotee, when we accept that yes, everything belongs to Krishna, I want to serve the Lord, I want to serve the mission of my spiritual master, then also there is a certain quota of service that is allotted to us, or there is a certain quota of mercy that is given to us, maybe as prasadam. Everything is prasadam here, but specifically prasadam also. So whatever is given to us, sometimes we see that, oh, somebody else has another quota. He has got some, looks like more prominent service. And that there may be a certain ichha that may develop that, oh, I want that service. I want the quota that is given to another devotee. After all, both of us are devotees. We are all in the same journey. None of us are perfect. None of us are pure devotees. Why that he should be given that quota? Why not for me? Like this one thought may come. So this is when we have that thought, yes, the thought may come because after all we are conditioned. And what should we do? Our role as a devotee at that point is to recognize that this thought is coming because of my past conditioning and immediately remind ourselves, Isavasyam idam sarvam yatkyancha jagatyam jagatyena tyaktena bhunjita magrida kasya svidhanam. So this verse we should remind ourselves. Little difficult. Difficult to say. But at least one word. Tena tyaktena bhunjita. This much we can remember. Can you all say? Tena tyaktena bhunjita. Tena tyaktena bhunjita. Tena tyaktena bhunjita. Now I hope that we all remember this. Tena tyaktena bhunjita means take only what is in your quota. Whatever has been given to you. So this is a very important verse from Ishopanishad. Now we come to the part 3 of this session, the laws of nature and how they act. Prabhupada says in the introduction, actually it is a book written by the disciples of Prabhupada, especially the introduction part. The chapters are all taken, and even in the introduction there are several quotes from Prabhupada. But there is a very nice statement in the introduction, which is actually a quotation taken from Bhagavatam, from a lecture on Ishopanishad. But I was not able to exactly find which lecture it was. But it is quoted in the introduction to this book, Laws of Nature. In that the quotation says, at every second, with every breath, our activities in this material world cause enjoyment and suffering. To facilitate these endless actions and reactions, there has to be more than just one life. There has to be reincarnation. So if at all we ever get any doubt on how many more lifetimes we have to take birth here, and how many different positions we have to be put under, how many different bodies we have to take, we only have to remind ourselves that at every second, with every breath, our activities in this material world cause enjoyment and suffering. So at every moment we are giving rise to newer and newer bodies in the future. Every breath that we take, we are creating a body in the future. Because with every breath, our ichcha and dvesha, they are translating into action. The action is completing the loop, and the desire becomes stronger and stronger and becomes ingrained in our consciousness as part of our psyche. And that is resulting in additional bodies in the future. So just imagine how much of future suffering we are creating, more suffering than enjoyment. Prabhupada is saying for the benefit of audience, enjoyment. Actually, later he says in many places it's not enjoyment, only suffering. Why is it that while one person is born in a rich family with a silver spoon, another person is born simultaneously in the poor family? Many times Prabhu has given this example of a child of Bill Gates and another child who's walking in a flooded area with a mother or father who's carrying a small child in the hand. Barely the child is surviving above the water and struggling to escape from the floods. On one hand, whereas the child of Bill Gates was prominently described in the newspaper. Sorry? Mark Zuckerberg, child of Mark Zuckerberg, prominently described in the photograph in the newspaper, and this child is born with a silver spoon. On the other hand, a small footnote, there's so much floods, so many people died, so many children died, and then there is a symbolic photograph of one child. But how many children would have gone away in that flood, nobody knows. There is no count also of that. It does not even appear in newspaper. So what is it that is causing this? Innocent children. People say children are innocent. All the sins are accumulated because of association with people around us, because of the society. Then why is it that the children are born under such different circumstances? See, these things, when we contemplate, the conviction in our Shastra becomes strong. Then with firm conviction, we can execute the orders of spiritual master. We will not have any doubt that we are missing out on some material fun. Because there is always this doubt that maybe what was taught in the school was after all correct. Maybe after all, theory of origins by Charles Darwin was in fact correct. Oh, maybe I'm wasting my time here with all these things. Let me better go and make my evolution better for subsequent generations. It's not like that. Because there are so many obvious contradictions that are not explained by these theories that conveniently scientific community sweeps them under the carpet. The biggest one of them is, yes, you're telling that there is a natural selection, but what is that nature? When you say natural selection, that means there is a nature that is selecting. What is the nature of that nature? What is that nature? Nobody knows. Who has created that nature? No answer. Who is managing the laws of physics, laws of nature? No answer. So there are so many big questions that are unanswered that the scientists would say that is outside of our scope. We are only trying to understand how nature works. We are not concerned with how nature began or who created nature. That's outside our purview. Prabhupada says, Arey, that is so convenient. So convenient. Most important questions you have left out and you are calling yourself a scientist. So therefore, with these contradictions give a stronger conviction that the Vedic literature is providing these answers. Because the state of being, one has yam yam vapi smaran bhavam, and the past deeds that we just talked about, the ichcha and dvesha that are there, they cause the variety of species and the specific position into which a person is put. Both these are different positions. One is in the position of poverty, the other is in the position of opulence. These are different positions. They are caused by previous deeds. If you do good work, Prabhupada says, you will have so-called enjoyment in your next life, but you will remain bound up in the cycle of birth and death. And if you do bad work, then you will have to suffer the sinful reactions and also remain bound up in birth and death. But if you work for Krishna, there are no such reactions, good or bad. And at the time of death, you will return to Krishna. This is the only way to break the bonds of karma. So the bonds of karma are extremely strong bonds of karma. And no matter whether you do good work or bad work, a person remains bound. If you do good work, charity, pious activities, then you get good results, but you still remain bound. If you do bad work, you may get animal species or hellish situations, difficulties, poverty, disease, legal court cases, but you still remain bound. So whether you do good work or bad work, you remain bound. So what is the way to get out of bondage? So for that, it says in Bhagavad Gita, Yajñarthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. So the work done for sacrifice to Vishnu must be performed. If you don't do that, then any other work becomes cause of bondage. So we just saw that good work also results in bondage, bad work also results in bondage. So then what is the work that does not result in bondage? Yajñarthat karmano anyatra. So if you do yajna or work to satisfy the Supreme Lord, then that does not cause bondage. Work done as sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way, you will always remain free from bondage. So this freedom from bondage is a very important factor that has been described in our Vedic literature. And of course, there is this wonderful verse, there are two verses in Bhagavad Gita that I would like to quote. And just with one or two more slides, we'll stop here for today. This verse is in 12th chapter, and Krishna is describing various ways in which you can advance in devotional service, various ways in which you can render devotional service in a way that pleases him in the 12th chapter. And here he's saying, Mai eva mana adhatsva, mai buddhim niveshaya. Niveshisyasi mai eva, ata urdhvam na samshaya. So remember, we are trying to get out of bondage. So Krishna is saying here, now he's talking about a very high principle. He's saying, Mai eva mana adhatsva, make your mind fixed upon me. Adhatsva is fixed. Mai buddhim niveshaya, your intelligence fixed upon me. Nivashasyasi mai eva, by staying thus in fully in me. Ata urdhvam na samshaya, this way you'll elevate yourself. And so the translation is, just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage your intelligence in me. Thus, you will live in me always without a doubt. So this is definitely a highest position. And by focusing ourselves completely in Krishna, completely remaining in Krishna consciousness, undoubtedly we'll become free from bondage, because Krishna is the giver of liberation, mukti dadati iti mukunda. Therefore, we will undoubtedly become free. But then Krishna recognizes that, okay, maybe this is a little difficult for all of you. So then he gives a slight concession. Let us see what concession he gives. Atha chittam samadhatum na shaknosi mai sthiram abhyasa yogena tato mam ichhaptum dhananjaya. So he says, what if you are unable to be completely 100% fixed upon me all the time? If you are unable to do that, na shaknosi mai sthiram, if steady determination, steady unwavering meditation upon me is not possible for you, then by practice, abhyasa yogena tato mam ichhaptum dhananjaya. Let us see what that means. It means, my dear Arjuna, O winner of wealth, If you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles in Bhakti Yoga, and in this way, develop a desire to attain me. So you see, from the point of Ichha Dvesha Samuttena to get to the point of Ichha Dvesha Vihinena, there is an intermediate step, which is to develop a desire to attain Krishna. Because if you don't have even a desire to attain Krishna, there is no way to completely get rid of the material desire. It is not possible to overcome material desire simply by wanting to overcome material desire. The way to overcome the material desire is actually to have a desire to obtain Krishna. So when you have a desire to obtain Krishna, and then you practice Bhakti Yoga with regulative principles, then automatically and gradually the Ichcha and Dvesha for material desires, they will go away. So there is also a wonderful song that has been composed by Srila Prabhupada when he was aboard Jaladuta. And this gives us another clue on how we can develop a desire to obtain Krishna. Because actually developing a desire to obtain Krishna is also so difficult for us that even that becomes difficult. And therefore, there is a concession that is available, further concession, that let us at least develop a desire to serve the mission of a pure devotee who has a firm desire to obtain Krishna, or who has already obtained Krishna, who has a firm desire to serve Krishna. So we have no desire to serve Krishna, but can we desire to help a person who has desired to serve Krishna? Can we do that? It is possible. So what is this power of a pure devotee's desire? Our desire is full of wanting to obtain material things. But what is the power of a pure devotee's desire? Let us see that. Krishna taba punya khabe bhai, e punya kori bojabe, Radha Rani sukhe habe, dhruva ati bole tu matai. O brothers, the Supreme Lord Krishna will bestow virtue upon you, but he will do this only when Srimati Radharani becomes pleased with you. This I surely declare to you. Shri Siddhanta Saraswati Sachi Sutta Priyati Krishna Sebaya Jara Tulatanai Se Mohanta Guru Jagatera Madhye Uru Krishna Bhakti Diya Tai Tai. Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, who is very dear to Lord Gauranga, the son of Mother Sachi, is unparalleled in his service to the Supreme Lord Krishna. He is that great saintly spiritual master, most magnanimous within this universe, who bestows devotion to Krishna in various places throughout this world. So who is writing this poem? Prabhupada. And who is Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur? It's his spiritual master. So Prabhupada is glorifying his spiritual master, and now he talks about the power of his spiritual master's desire. Let us see what he says. Tara ichha balavan paschatyete than than hoye jate gaurangera nam prithvi te nagaradi asamudra nada nadi sakaleli bole Krishna Ram. Tara ichha balavan, his desire is very powerful, and thus he is causing the holy name of Lord Gauranga to spread throughout all the countries of the Western world, in the cities, the town, and the villages on the earth, extending to all the oceans, rivers, and streams. Everyone may chant the names of Krishna and Rama. So you see, this desire of the spiritual master, of a pure devotee, is so powerful that he is causing the holy name of Lord Gauranga. You can see practically in Massachusetts how when we go out and do Sankirtan, or people are coming here and everybody is taking to the name of Rama and Krishna. People are chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra and is spreading throughout the Western world in all the cities and towns. So simply we are able to develop a desire to help the mission of such a pure devotee who is already having a very strong desire to please Krishna. Then even though we do not have ourselves a desire to obtain Krishna, but by simply desiring to please such a person and help in his mission, we can actually obtain the greatest benefit. There is just one more verse I will chant, and then with that I will stop. We sing this in all ISKCON temples. It is sung every day morning, but here we are singing once in a week. Shri Guru Charana Padma. So everybody knows this song. So in this there is a verse. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Kya Arna kori ho mane asha. So we should not have a desire, from the point of view of desiring to please the spiritual master. Actually, when we meditate upon this, when we contemplate, and we mold our life around helping the cause of the spiritual master, we come to a stage where there is no other desire than to take the instructions of our spiritual master and make this one with our heart. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya, the instructions coming from the spiritual master, should become the very soul, the very purpose of our life, and there should be no other desire in our life. Although we still may not have the desire to obtain Krishna, that is still far away. But at least the person whose life has been devoted to serving the mission, to desire of Krishna, that person's instruction should become our life and soul. That can happen. So the first stage is to develop a desire to help that such a spiritual master, and then when we mold our life, it will come to this point where there is no other desire. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is a perfection that fulfills all desires. So just in case, as we close this session today and we go home and we contemplate upon, oh, does that mean that I can no longer enjoy other material comforts? Can I not switch on the AC and just enjoy a little bit of fresh air? Should I give up that desire? Should I not have any such desire to maybe, buy some nice shirt or some good shoes? Should I give up all those desires? No, don't worry, because the attachment to the lotus feet of the Lord is a perfection that fulfills all desires. You will reach a state where whatever desire you should have, you will have, and those desires will be fulfilled. The desires that are unnecessary, anarthas, you will become nivritti. You will overcome them. You will overcome them over time. So with the association of devotees, when we are trying to fulfill the wishes of the spiritual master, automatically unwanted activities, unwanted desires, they melt away over time. It is not by artificial means that we have to suppress them, because it cannot be suppressed. It is by having a higher desire and by filling our lives and molding our lives around those desires that we reach that state where there is no other desire but to serve the lotus feet of the spiritual master. So with this, I'll stop here and see if you have any questions, comments. Our Vedic literature is full of scientific revelations, and when we contemplate upon that, we should do so not with blind faith, but with our eyes and intelligence active and receiving the information and very critically analyzing the scientific theories, juxtaposing them, putting them against the Vedic revelations, and trying to understand from a Vedic perspective, not being blinded. In fact, our faith is blind with science. Although we call Vedic literature, some people sometimes they say this is all superstition and blind faith. It is actually the reverse. We accept science with blind faith. Nobody has seen the calculations of how the Big Bang happened. Has anybody understood? I actually purchased that book once, A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. And although it is called popular science, there are very detailed calculations in that. Beyond first page, I could not understand any of that. And okay, scientists have said it must be true. Like that we accept. But when Krishna says that all the species come simultaneously, no, this is blind belief. So we are very selective. So that is why it is very important to see through the lens of a pure devotee on how he juxtaposes them. And because we are so blinded by the theories that we are unable to see obvious flaws, like this natural selection. What is nature? Don't know. Who is making the arrangements for natural selection? No, it is outside our purview. We don't want to think about it. So these, to understand, even to see that these are questions that we should be thinking about, reading Prabhupada's books gives us that knowledge. We'll stop here. Grantra Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki